Second game of the second day of the 2017 MLS Player Combine about to kick off. Team Control in white going left to right against Team Tango in red going right to left. Team Tango getting us started. David Goss, Andrew Wiebe, and Matt Doyle joining you for this one. For Team Tango in red, Stephen Cleveland in goal, Regan Dunk at right back, Jack Elliott and Miles Robinson in midfield, Felix Vobeda at left back at a UCLA. Two holding midfielders, Joe Holland and Sam Hamilton. Ahead of them, Nico Hansen on the left, Martim Galvao in the middle, Brant Bronico on the right, and 6'5" big man out of North Carolina, Tucker Hume up top. Doyle, for you out of Team Tango, the guys I said, this starting lineup, who are you looking for? Who are you looking out for that either has to have a better day, has moved positions, a few different guys?
I thought Joe Holland actually in the first day had kind of an under-the-radar very good game. That'd be number 64 in red. I want to see a little bit more from him. He is, of course, an international, so it's tougher for him to get picked. And the other one, I think Regan Dunk actually has a lot on the line because he came into this maybe the second-rated right back in the draft. Other guys, Duiacham, Jacob Nowinski, Colton Storm have all had stronger showings so far, I think.
On the flip side, for Team Control in white, Eric Klanovsky in goal. Right back, Chris Aduacham, that Doyle just mentioned. Justin Schmidt and Jordan Wilson at center back. And Danilo Rajin at left back out of Akron. The two holding midfielders for them to start the game, Chris Wingate and Andrew Wheeler-Aminu out of Harvard in front of them. Napo Matsoso from the University of Kentucky. He's flanked by Jalen Brown and goal scorer from last game, Zico Lewis, out wide right. And Julito Fernandez from UMass Lowell, the 26-year-old from Cape Verde, will go up top for Team Control as Zico Lewis cuts in and gets the shot away. Andrew, for Team Control, who in this starting lineup are you looking out for?
Well, Zico Lewis is an obvious one, and no surprise that he cuts in on his left foot there. That's where he wants to go. He had a good first game, was able to get him behind. That was something Doyle said he was looking for, and we saw that from him. I think the guys on the bench were the ones that most teams are more interested in, the Gressels, the Daniel Johnsons, the Nerwinskis, and Jackson Yules of the world. But I do want to see Justin Schmidt back at center back. He played the second half at outside back. He's back in his what's more likely to be his position in MLS at center back. But Aduiacham, he's a guy, as you said, who really rose in people's eyes in that first day. Physical, fast, had some good service. Can we see more of the same today? And then Klanovsky is accepted to be, by most teams, the number one goalkeeping prospect. Will he be tested in this game? It's hard to really judge him, but if Team Tango can get something going, we could see some big moments from him.
These two teams combined for 7 goals on the first day of play. Team Control with a 3-1 win. Team Tango 4-1 themselves. Pushed off the ball there. Zico Lewis and turned over. Lewis, one of the seniors that signed a deal. Miles Robinson, he's going to play in Major League Soccer. A Generation Adidas player out of Syracuse. Just a sophomore, was the ACC Defender of the Year, a U.S. Youth International. And we didn't see much from him because of play, Doyle. What have you heard about him? What have you heard about the question marks around him and the positives around him?
He didn't help or hurt himself in that first day because he wasn't really tested. I think it's pretty much accepted that he's going to be the first central defender off the board because of his age, because of his upside, because of the Generation Adidas tag. I think he probably is a good bet to go number 2, maybe number 3 at the lowest. But you want to see him get tested. You want to see him in those 1v1s that other center backs have had to face. It almost helped Lalas Abubakar to have a kind of a weak midfield in front of him because he was constantly making plays in the box. And the team Tango midfield has been so good now through a game in 10 minutes or 5 minutes anyway, that these guys in red on the back line haven't had to face similar stuff.
But Team Control has been probably the best team as far as cohesion so far. And you can see already they're pushing up the field. They're putting players under pressure. Teams are going to want to see Miles Robinson with players around him, players trying to get him off the ball, make him uncomfortable, how he responds to that.
Matt Soso there, attacking number 27 for Team Control in white, now putting the pressure on the ball. He and Jalen Brown getting a start in this one. They did not start in the last game, as well as Chris Wingate behind them out of University of New Hampshire. Vobeda playing at right back and left back in the last game, starting here at left back. Nico Hansen putting pressure on there for Team Tango. Turned over. And now a free kick will go. Advantage played and now called against Brown. It's an opportunity for the side in red. They were led up top by Abu Dunladi in the last game, who showed his athleticism and pressure. He'll come off the bench in this game. So we'll see who can pull the strings in the attack for Team Tango. It's Tucker Hume up top this time. Brant Bronico getting shifted out wide right. Hollins standing over this one. Doyle mentioned one of the players played quite confidently in that first game. His free kick to the far post is headed back. Now a chance to push the ball up the field for Jolito Fernandez, who turns it over, and Dunk comes forward from his right back position. Turned over, side in red, trying to make some inroads, and it's cleared away. Matoso battling there with Elliott, and Elliott wins the ball. Matoso not giving up. And now Nico Hansen coming forward. The left-footed shot from him goes off the goalkeeper's hands and over the top of the crossbar. Klanovsky with the mistake, fortunate to not give up a goal.
Yeah, he was lucky right there. Nico Hansen, that's what folks like about him. When he gets the ball, he plays very direct towards goal. We saw him pick up an assist in the first game. Now we see him putting pressure right up the middle.
Corner kick taken for Team Tango. Curled into the box, still alive, and finally cleared by Control. Vobeda charging forward. Looks for the feet of Hamilton, and it's lofted away. Once again, Tango able to possess this ball, not allow Team Control to clear their lines. Finally, Matsoso gets his foot on it, and now Schmidt will cycle it wide right. Nico Hansen, an interesting soccer upbringing as we see him get on the ball and start the attack for his side once again. Danish-American, growing up in Denmark, moving here to the U.S. in middle school, so learning to play the game in California as well. But his dad, a professional coach both on the women's and men's side, back in his native Denmark. Coaching professionally, first division right now in the women's game, was a U16 coach for a professional academy just last year. And so one of those players growing up in the game, trying to make his name in Major League Soccer at the next level. He had an assist last game.
Yes, that we botched.
Yeah.
We gave it to Brant Bronico, who also had a nice day.
Not everyone's first touch is clean on the first day, Doyle. It's about coming back and being better.
That's right.
On day two. Corner kick taken for the team in white. Matsoso pushing it wide. Zico Lewis coming in on his favorite left foot, and that is blocked away. Lewis, as I mentioned, one of the seniors that's already signed a contract at a Boston college, an international for Bermuda, scoring a goal already in CONCACAF play. As it comes
Bermuda,
back to the
of course,
outside.
playing Canada in a couple of weeks in a January friendly.
That camp being announced by Canada. A Mr. J. Chapman involved in that one,
That's
Matt
right.
Doyle.
Oh.
You
see
know
our
what that-
listeners know what to do.
They know what that means.
Ball played up the field.
Little plays like that from Bronico, why I like him. He wasn't afraid at all to get on the ball in a little bit of traffic. Didn't do anything special with it, but kept possession, kept the ball moving.
Hansen coming in to that final third. Lays it off for Vobeda. Vobeda, naturally a center midfielder in college. Making that transition here at Combine. Bronico starting as the number 10 in the last game was very bright. Now being pushed out wide right. Was more of a central player in college for Charlotte. Where do you see him at that next level? What do you think the coaches are saying about this positional switch?
I think he'll have to prove he can play the 10. Any American or Canadian player is up against it trying to play the 10 in this league because coaches just, for whatever reason, they're disinclined to trust domestic products in those spots. And so it is what it is. If he's gonna win that job, he's gonna have to come into
Tucker Hume cut off by Schmidt there.
he's going to have to come into camp, and he's really going to have to light it up. I think he'll get more looks on the wing. And the question with Brant Bronico is, does he have the speed? Because he's certainly not a Zako Lewis or Daniel Johnson out there. So he'll have to be clever, and he'll have to be clean with his touches, and he'll have to work both sides of the ball.
Brown gets away from Dunk, the first defender, and Holland able to sweep it up. Holland now coming into the box. He can't keep the ball. Holland playing at Hofstra University, CAA champions this year out of London, England. He said that he's going to use the money he would make in his professional soccer career potentially to get a master's in economics. He's got an interest in working in policy, maybe for even the UN eventually. Came into his player interview.
I feel like having a master's in economics would help for running an MLS team. Keep GAM and TAM and retention funds and all that separate. And requires a lot of spreadsheets.
At the University of Matt Doyle here, we've already got our career counselor, Andrew Wiebe, of course, your copy editor for any papers or necessary resumes going out.
I'll go the tutor route, perhaps.
And for myself, I help you pick out your clothes for your interview. This ball pushed out left, of course. The majority of players here are seniors that have graduated or in the process of graduating from college, looking to continue their pro careers or maybe move into another career. This ball's played into the feet of Hansen, who turns open, and it's blocked away by Schmidt. And his clearance goes out for a goal kick.
Good defending there by Schmidt. The instinct to see the run, he's there. He doesn't let the turn get in, doesn't let Nico Hansen get a good touch. But you've seen Hansen get in good spots and understand where the space is going to be and use his body well.
Ziggy Schmidt will join us here in the second half on this stream, the second game of the day. And we talked a lot about him in the second half of last game about moves that could be happening in Major League Soccer, about rumors that could be happening. Minnesota United making a move here, Doyle, today that's being announced, and they are going into their first season, and it seems like another solid signing from them in Demidov, a captain over in Europe, Doyle, and a player that seems like could be ready to start day one for this Minnesota United squad.
Yeah, he's a 30-year-old defensive midfielder with a lot of experience and some decent leagues in Europe. I don't think you bring a guy over like that to sit him on the bench. I do wonder what it means for Colin Warner, who I have heard is interested in trying his hand in Europe. So that's obviously a hole that Minnesota thought they had to fill. It's not a super exciting signing, but not every signing is going to be.
The one thing I will say about him is that when you look at this press release from Minnesota United, they talk about central defense. The exact words in the PR is a strong option at central defense. So they may be looking at Vadim Demidov there, but that's a decision that they'll make in preseason. Certainly his versatility is a positive for Adrian Heath, Manny Lagos, and co.
I mentioned Ziggy Schmidt coming up in the second half. We had him on the second half of last game as Tucker Hume lays this one off for Joe Holland. Holland gets it under control, looking for the cross. Gets away. Matsoso back to help. And now he clears his lines. Well, we had Ziggy Schmidt on the second half last game. Doyle, was there anyone that stood out for you in the second half of that game between Team Chaos and Team Copa?
Well, I thought Colton Storm stood out for the wrong reasons. He was great in the first half, and he was terrible at left back in the second half. That's fine. He's going to get drafted as a right back, not a left back. It would probably help him a little bit if he was maybe more flexible. Other than that, that game, I don't think it cast anybody in a great light. I mean, maybe you could argue Brian Wright, who I think was a little bit dangerous. But even the guys who were busier, like Marcus Epps, he kept getting up the flank and getting on the ball, and you notice that, and his speed is impossible to miss. But you also notice that he was never finding Jones on the overlap. You notice that the final product was never quite there. So there was nobody, I think, who appreciably helped themselves in that first game.
Trainer out on the field to try and help out.
It's like it's Chris Wingate.
Chris Wingate, one of the late invitees to this combine from University of New Hampshire. And so the substitution will be made immediately. Jackson Ewell, the Generation Adidas player out of Minnesota, who scored a goal in the first game, was one of the players being discussed heavily out of that game. And now he'll come back on to play in the same central midfield role once again.
Another guy Minnesota United could be looking at, that Minnesota background. He's a native. Could be a real boon for them. And he's a great player. There's no doubt about that. A 19-year-old generation Adidas. He's got the contract status that you're looking for and the talent that you're looking for. A good left-footed finish on the first day. Through a little bit of traffic in off the post. A guy who will look to impress once again. Really good in that deep lying role, but also very good up the field. He's got a good vision, and he can find that final pass.
Miles Robinson rotating this ball. This ball floated out for a dunk down the right side and taken away there by Rajan. Danilo Rajan playing the last game at center back, now going out to play left back. Jaylen Brown looks for a teammate. Pressure on Klinovsky, and he's able to clear it up the line perfectly to a teammate. Now Matsoso leading the attack. Team control looking to push forward. Get themselves the opening goal in this one. Ewell just on the field, and it swept away.
And he wanted that ball just a second earlier. By the time it got there, he'd paused and the defense had recovered. You could see him looking for it.
And took a touch and allowed the defense to completely recover.
Quickly
Didn't feel it coming.
Quickly taken free kick. Bronico out wide right. He gets it to Hume. And Tucker Hume's pass go a little bit long. Klinovsky can't save it and will go to a corner kick.
I understand the impulse right there from Tucker Hume to try to set something up, and that's what he's known for. He's a big target forward who you can play off of. But Bronico put that ball on his foot 20 yards away, and he had room to take a shot. You have to take that shot every now and again. Even if you're an Alan Gordon type who's never scored from outside the box in your entire life, you have to take that shot to keep the defense honest.
Corner kick coming now. It'll be Holland, the left-footed service. Klinovsky with a tip to it. Now Miles Robinson keeps it in possession for Team Tango. A battle out there on the wing. Zico Lewis trying to do some work defensively. He allows Hamilton to get away. Hamilton keeps possession back to Holland's foot. Long strike from Holland. It goes off Bronico's foot and rolls out. Klinovsky able to get to it safely. We mentioned the buzz that Team Control put on. That's been around this combine. A lot of buzz, though, Andrew, around Major League Soccer right now, around this stadium, is for the Portland Timbers. Sebastian Blanco, it sounds like, might be in the future for the Timbers. A lot of work being done. Doyle, you mentioned Milano might be on the way out. Is Blanco the player to replace him or take him to the next level?
Milano is gone. He's back in Belgrano now, which is his childhood team. Blanco, I think, plays on the wing. For Portland. I mean, he has played maybe a little bit more as a pure number 10 down in Argentina, but I think given what Portland have and their needs, he would fit on the wing, the left side, cut inside, be a little bit goal dangerous and a little bit of a playmaker. If they get this guy done, this is a really good signing, and it looks very much like it's about to get done.
For the Portland Timbers, they go down, they're trying to get this done out of San Lorenzo, of course the same team that Nacho Piatti came from, and of course Portland. They've had hit or miss down in Argentina. Diego Valeri, one of the best DP signings in history. At the same time, Milano struggling to settle in. But Weeby, 2 years ago, Portland won, and it was kind of let's keep things very similar and see if we can roll forward. They don't make the playoffs last year. Is this the type of move? Do they have the type of roster to potentially go for another MLS Cup run?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I do think they have some concerns perhaps at center back where they've had to make some changes. And, you know, when they have their players healthy, they've been pretty good over the years. But you saw issues with Nat Borchers last year with that Achilles injury. And Liam Ridgewell had some issues this offseason. He's still he's come back from those. He had the charges dropped on those DUI accusations. But they've gone out and they've reinforced the back line. Roy Miller's come in. You expect him to probably play center back for them. They also went and got David Guzman from Saprissa. So two Saprissa players. And then Jeff Attinella coming in as well, a goalkeeper. But this is a team that needs to reinforce but has the players, I think, has the core in the Diego Chirraz of the world. Valeria mentioned Darlington Nagbe, so much interest in him from Celtic, but that didn't end up going anywhere. Fernando Adi up top. They have the players to have a successful 2017 season. It's just about surrounding them with the right people. And if Sebastian Blanco does indeed sign for them, the rumors are a multi-million-dollar package. That could be huge.
Coming down this left wing, Bronico gets the shot away, and it's blocked. Now Aduiachim trying to clear lines for team control, and he draws a free kick. The Portland Timbers, Matt, they're the number 10 pick in this draft, and Andrew mentioned the hole at center back. Brandon Aubrey, Miles Robinson, Justin Schmidt, a number of other players, Francis DeFries, a number of center backs have been discussed as the stronger players in this draft class. Do you see someone that the Timbers could get at number 10 that could be a difference maker for them?
I think you mentioned a number of guys who could potentially be good depth. I think that between Liam Ridgewell and the Nigerian guy that they have on Portland, whose name escapes me, they already have their central defensive pairing. And the other thing to remember is Portland doesn't use the draft. They've had one draft pick in the team's history that has become a regular, and that's Darlington Nagbe, and that was more than half a decade ago now. So, if anything, I kind of expect them to try to unload that number 10 pick and maybe turn it into a little bit of allocation money, or maybe even an MLS veteran who could provide the depth. Because Andrew's right; they've had that core the last couple of years. It's a very good core, and when that core is healthy, they're a very good team. But they don't have the depth to compete across multiple competitions at a high level, and they've shown that each of the last 2-3 seasons.
Benga Arokoyo, of course, that center back who came in last year, but injuries, wasn't able to get playing time. You mentioned the Portland Timbers not using the draft as much as other teams, although average minutes by draft pick, they're one of the highest in the league. DC United number 1. You can get all those numbers on MLSsoccer.com. An article written by Ben, the research bear, about that. That's lot of Darlington other coverage.
Nagbe. That's Nagbe right there. If you want to look at who makes that pick, it's Nagbe, because there's not other players to bring it down. So that's where you look at it in that sense. But Portland historically is built more in those discovery signings, and Blanco would certainly fit in that case. Just 5'5", that doesn't mean too much, especially out on the wing, but a tricky player who could be a difference maker. We know Fernando Adi, given service, he scores goals. And if you have a number of players that can take some of that pressure off of Diego Valeri, maybe get out on the break with him, this could be a team that could be very explosive in 2017.
Dangerous moments there for Wilson as he almost turns the ball over. It ends up in a foul against team control, and a free kick coming in favor of the red side. Team Tango going right to left, team control going left to right here. Midway through the second match of the second day of the 2017 MLS Player Combine, David Goss, Andrew Wiebe, and Matt Doyle coming to you from the StubHub Center in Carson, California. Joe Holland with the drive, the deflection, and it hits the post. A second chance maybe here for Hansen. He cuts by his defender, looking for a teammate down that end line. Can't get it off his foot, and Klonovsky gets a touch to it, and a chance for Wilson to clear. Joe Holland has been aggressive so far in these opening 25 minutes, Doyle.
He is. He's a classic English central midfielder. He's not a pure attacker. He's not a pure defensive midfielder, but he keeps the ball moving, doesn't take a lot of bad touches, and he's got, as you saw right there, a rifle of a shot.
Joe Holland coming in field, bangs that shot off. An opponent, Klonovsky, fortunate to see it hit the post.
Tricky from Hansen, too. Just didn't have that final ball there. But that little cutback, that's what teams want to see. Can he create something in those situations when he's isolated? Does he have the instincts, the technical ability to do so? And he did there.
Hansen playing out left in the first game, starting there today, but him and Bronico have swapped wings for the red side team Tango under the tutelage of Jamie Franks, the Denver University head coach. His squad has gone back-to-back regular seasons undefeated into the College Cup this season. And Hansen once again into the box as he rips that cross past everyone, and Volbeda can't keep it in. Nico Hansen.
Hansen has a little bit of elusiveness there, both on and off the ball. I think he's helped himself so far in the first 25 minutes of this one. He's a guy who is a top 15 pick, I think, and if he keeps playing like that, he will hear his name called in the first hour and a half of this draft.
You look at the 2016 draft, and you can see difference makers throughout those top 15 picks, 15 and on. A lot of guys who are spending some time in USL right now with that new setup. But a number of players in those top 12. Jonathan Campbell at 12, I think. Julian Boucher at 11, who were big players for their side this year. As Aduiachim comes forward, his cross on the ground intercepted by Robinson.
And there we see the scouting report. He's got the speed. He's got the physical capability to run by someone. But then when it comes to that decision, when it comes to the final ball, it just wasn't there that time, and coaches will take note.
Halfway through this opening half, Nico Hansen's been bright. Anyone else stood out for you or done well for themselves?
I think Holland has been, the best of the central midfielders out there so far. Ewell came in and immediately hit one or two nice passes, and of course, a Dewey Atcham. The guys who you expect to look good. That said, Justin Schmidt, who, well, let's take a look at this.
Schmidt now having to do some defensive work. Klonovsky comes out, he takes it off the feet of Hansen, and it rolls out for a goal kick.
I think Justin Schmidt has mostly gotten the better of Tucker Hume. He's looked strong and composed, and he hasn't been caught unawares on just about anything that's happened there. Justin Schmidt's never going to play for the U.S. national team, and that's fine because not every player is going to hit that level. But you need to fill out your roster with guys who you can put in for a game or two here or there and know that, look, they're not necessarily going to win you the game, but they're not going to lose it for you either. And that's the type of defender that Schmidt is, and I think that's why he'll go in the early to mid-teens.
If Doyle's daughter was dating Justin Schmidt, he would turn to her and say, he's never going to play for the U.S. national team. You should marry a doctor.
And I would say, hey, guys like Chad Marshall didn't have a long national team career. Now, Borchers didn't, and they still did a job in MLS.
Joe Holland gets into the box. He's trying to turn Wilson. He does. The left-footed shot curled away. It'll go out for a throw-in in the corner. But once again, Holland gets forward into the play.
Beautiful little piece of skill from here. He skips past, gets his head up, sets it up. Right there, and this is where he'll want to do better. Unfortunately for him, just couldn't quite get his foot wrapped around that ball.
We are all hoping that Joe Holland does make it into the league, as we hope for all of these players. A lot of great personalities here. We hope, though, he might be able to find a place with New York Red Bulls because Bradley Wright Phillips, one of the best grime rappers in the league. Joe Holland, a big-time grime fan. We could see that matchup, Andrew.
Define grime.
Oh, it's British rap from South London at 140
London.
beats per minute. Everyone knows that.
Wow.
Come on, guy.
Someone really did their prep.
Shout out to Grime. Work down on this right wing. Reagan Dunk sticking to what we all know, which is soccer and nothing else. Rain off and on here in the sun at the StubHub Center. Coming down as this is the second day of the Combine here in what we like would be, hopefully, sunny LA. We have a few more days. Thursday will be another set of games as the action comes up. Once again, these players, that last opportunity to show off for these coaches, a number of interviews going on this week, because Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern time on MLSsoccer.com, the 2017 MLS SuperDraft, these players will learn their fate. They'll learn where they're going. Andrew, a number of big-time picks in the last draft. Jack Harrison on the top. Keegan Rosenberry playing every minute of the Major League Soccer season. So we know how impactful this draft can be to building teams.
Yeah, Tsubasa Indua was another guy taken at 9 by Toronto FC that they really liked, who played a big role early in the season. Omar Holness for RSL, they like him too.
Battle at that corner kick. Cleaning it up on the far side's Galvao. And knocked away right up into the air by Wilson. Matsoso trying to get it under control. He can't. Holland pushing forward again off the foot of Tucker Hume and cleared away by the white side in team control. Team Tango dictating play out here in this opening half between these two sides. As Julito Fernandez has had a quiet game. He looks to get on the ball now and find Lewis. The switch of the field. Radjin now the Akron player for team control. Brown to the feet of Matsoso. Napo Matsoso out of Lesotho, an enclave nation located in South Africa, Andrew. One of only, I believe, 5 enclave nations in the world. Can you name another one?
Ooh.
San Marino.
There you go.
Took it right out of my, took it right off the tip
Oh,
of my
because
tongue.
that's what you were going to say? Lesotho.
Wasn't aware that geography was going to be part of Matt Doyle University.
This is a player combine, Andrew. We test every single aspect.
Gotcha.
We'd like to know one time that you've been challenged in your life.
You think that comes up in player interviews?
I think it has to. Sam Hamilton coming forward. He gets it to Hansen. Hansen's shot is blocked. It deflects around and goes out for a corner kick.
Hansen just has that knack. loose balls, the right runs. He gets on it in the right places, and then he's aggressive, and I think teams will like what they see so far from him.
You can see down in the corner, number 23, Daniel Johnson, getting warmed up. He put on a show in the first half of the first day of Combine play, as we see that shot get deflected. Hansen, of course, had an assist as well on the first day, having a strong showing here again. So stick to our stream as that second half comes. A few players that a lot of people are excited about: Julian Gressel, Guillermo Delgado, who had a goal and set up a penalty kick in the last game, and Daniel Johnson with 2 assists will be checking in. Of course, Ziggy Schmidt will as well. Zico Lewis taken down and a free kick going to the white side, team control. Zico Lewis playing his high school ball at prep school in Massachusetts. Played with a certain Jack Harrison, who's got a pretty tight line and good haircut, as well as a ton of production in his first season at NYCFC. Patrick Vieira and his squad, of course, out here once again looking for that next difference maker. Remember, they traded to get Jack Harrison. He was one of the big pieces in their improvement this season. Now Lewis floats this ball in safely into the hands of Cleveland.
Important to remember, though, NYCFC do not have a first-round pick as it currently stands. Theirs went to the Seattle Sounders. So going to look in the second round. Maybe they can move up. They'll have to wait and see how all that goes.
Although we've heard rumors, Doyle, that Atlanta United, they have the number 2 and number 8 picks. They could be a team that might be open to moving around a little bit, giving another team an option, maybe like NYCFC, or maybe a different team that wants 2 picks to move up.
They do seem the likeliest of the teams to make a move. Of the ones in the top 3. That said, I think the Fire will always listen if you pick up the phone and make a call. The fact that Jeremy Ebobisse didn't play for 2 straight games now tells me that Minnesota are very convinced that they're going to take him number 1 overall. So I don't really think that one's in play unless there's a King's ransom involved. But it'll be interesting. The name that I've heard that people are interested in trading up to get their hands on is Abu Danladi. And the team that I've heard is very interested is the New York Red Bulls. So, we'll see if anything comes from that. Maybe Jesse Marsh and Ali Curtis have something up their sleeves.
Jesse Marsh, of course, not here. It's been discussed quite often. Abu Danladi will most likely we'll see him in the second half as Tucker Humes called offside for this Team Tango in red. But Weeby, Red Bulls have been very quiet in this offseason. Another strong regular season, a struggle in the playoffs. You really liked Danladi in the last game. Where would you see him fit in with them?
Oh, look, I think he could play one of those wing positions for him, no doubt about it. He's a powerful guy. He's a fast guy. He's got the instincts out there, a good shot. That's a place where they're looking for some solutions. Down in Royal maybe could be that player this year. Mike Grella had a very good season 2 seasons ago. He was very solid last season as well, but not sure they see him as a 34-game player, so to speak. Of course, Lloyd Sam moved on, but in that system and with CCL for them, they're going to need depth. And Danladi's a guy with the pedigree and with the skill set to do so. The question is injuries. Will he be able to be on the field enough to be effective?
Lewis getting it up that right wing. Adui Achem's cross handled easily by Cleveland in the end. New York Red Bulls, of course, a team that's invested in youth, one of the best academies in the league, as well as the number 1 team in USL. New York Red Bulls, too, the 2016 USL Cup champions. Zach Carroll, a draft pick for them, a big difference maker on that team. They have a number of players that they've taken in the draft that they've been able to push into that team. Justin Bilyeu, another one who have been around the fringe of the first team and gone on to play with their USL side. Of course, you'd have to think if they trade up for Abu Danladi, he's a player that they want to be a difference maker in the 18 almost immediately. Vobeda coming into the box. His left-footed cross played in. It goes through everyone and out the other side.
But that Generation Adidas contract would be very, very tempting for the Red Bulls. So you may give up some assets to trade up, but you look at your salary cap situation, and after a successful year, bonuses certainly play a big role there.
Huel over the top for Zico Lewis. The wet turf causes this one to bounce a little bit wide. But, Doyle, that was something you talked about specifically. Can Zico Lewis stretch a defense, making that run off the wing?
He's been impressive with that over a game and a half now. He is a guy who has helped his stock, I think, quite a bit. And he's not necessarily going out there and getting on the ball and
Getting into the box now, Team Tango. Regan Dunk trying to find a teammate, Tucker Hume, on the top of the box. Plays it wide. Branico with the shot. It's blocked twice. It does get a little bit of the arm of Schmidt.
I think he was pulling his arm in. But I think that, Lewis isn't necessarily going out there and roasting defenders 1v1, but he's keeping the field big for team control, and he's threatening in behind, and that's what you want from your winger. You want a guy who can play off the guys in the center and help the forward out.
Two of the things that you said, Doyle, after day one, outside of individual player performance, was the composure of the midfield of team control and the structure of Team Tango, the red team. You complimented Jamie Franks in the short time he had with them, as well as on the flip side for Team Control, the performance they have. What do you think about what you've seen so far today?
I think it's been good. I think that that Team Control misses Ewell and Gressel and obviously Johnson in terms of their creativity and their ability to complete plays, and that's been the big difference. But you can see that this team kind of has an idea of what they want to do. Team Tango, a little less dynamic than they were in their first game yesterday, and maybe part of that is having a more static center forward in Tucker Hume rather than Donladi to play off of.
We mentioned that NYCFC doesn't have a draft picks this year in the first round of the MLS SuperDraft as Tucker Humes comes forward and collides with Schmidt. That's because it's traded to NYCFC. They have the 16th pick and the 22nd pick, due the MLS Cup champions. And they come forward this year into 2017. We saw how hard it was, Weeby, for Portland to try and defend their title. Now Seattle has the same challenge. Another team that got hot at the end, won MLS Cup. How does that translate to this second year under Coach Schmetzer? Is it the same as it was in the playoffs, or do they go back to what it was like similar in the regular season?
Well, I think they have a big uncertainty, and that was like a penalty kick.
And a penalty kick. Napo Matsoso draws this one. You can see Garth Lagerwey down there putting a note in his book as Matsoso out of the University of Kentucky draws a penalty kick. Team Control, like they did in the first game, trying to take a 1-0 lead from the spot. Zico Lewis was the man to step up last time, and he'll do so again.
Elliott diving in there. Not a good challenge from him, but nice elusiveness, a good touch inside. That's not a play that he'll be happy with, though.
Lewis stepping up to this one. Stefan Cleveland in goal. Zico Lewis already one goal from the penalty spot. Can he make it two? The left-footed strike. He goes the other way this time and puts it home. A 1-0 lead for Team Control in the 38th minute.
Well taken there with the left foot, but probably not something the coaches are going to take too much note of other than his willingness to step up and then the finish. If you step
Team
up, you got to finish. We saw that in day one.
There
was
number 26,
airmail at one point.
Zico
Doyle
Lewis
Matsoso getting the start
38th
this
minute.
game. Came off the bench in the last game. Draws the penalty. What have you seen from him so far in this combine?
Well, it was a good little run. He was in the right spot right there, and you could see he's elusive on the ball. He doesn't look like a playmaker to me, and he's kind of being asked to play as a playmaker, and I don't think that's his role. He actually impressed me a little bit at defensive midfield as kind of a number 6 in the first game. He's a player I have not seen a lot of. I didn't watch a lot of University of Kentucky soccer over the last 4 years.
You're missing out.
I guess.
Cats by 90.
So that's a nice little turn right there. So I think that he's a guy who, the coaches will have to go on the reports from their scouts. But from me, he's someone I would take a look at maybe in the second, third round. Bring him into camp, see if he could be a miniature Diego Chara type.
Hey, you can see the touch and ability, and you're saying a chance into maybe a USL setup or camp to get positionally sound.
And that's the way the draft has to evolve, right? Because now that there are, 60-odd professional teams.
Right now, Ewell trying to get into the box. Holland makes the tackle and pushes it away to Hansen. Hansen trying to lead the break.
But now that there are 60-odd professional teams, there are more pathways to the first division.
Hansen once again trying to be a difference maker. Gets into the box, puts the brakes on, curls a shot, and puts it home. End to end, 18-18. It starts on the foot of Holland, ends on the foot of Hansen. A 1-1 game here.
That was absolutely superb balance from Nico Hansen. He stopped on a dime and just absolutely roasted Justin Schmidt. And Schmidt took the right angle, but as Weeby said, Hansen has that little touch of elusiveness and was just able to get away, keep his balance, turn inside a phone booth right here. That is impressive.
In the 40th minute.
And that helps your draft stock. I'm not sure it'll hurt Justin Schmidt that much. It doesn't help him that much. It doesn't help him, though.
We saw Hansen be elusive earlier in this half and not have that final product on the end line. That time he absolutely had it. A 1-1 game here. Nico Hansen, the Danish NorCal native. That's, of course, average across the world, those Danish NorCals.
Mm-hmm. Danish father, American mother.
Out of New Mexico, was the MVP of the All-American game in high school.
13 goals his senior year as well. So he had a big senior year. Showed he can make those finishes there. But really a winger, you would think, at the next level. And that's where he has to sort of prove that physically he can win those battles, that his speed can get in some separation, and he got it there on Justin Schmidt.
You know, I have him going to, I think, DC United in my mock draft. I mean, to me, he makes a lot of sense there because DC they do have a lot of good wingers, but the two best are over 30, and Patrick Nyarko and Lloyd Sam. And Nyarko in particular is not super durable, so they do need to start getting, more wing depth into that roster. I think Hansen would be a very good fit for them.
They brought in, of course, Jose Guillermo Ortiz from Costa Rica, one of the number of Costa Rican players coming into the league.
Lamar Nagel is still there as well, too. Yeah,
always productive, Lamar Nagel.
Lloyd Sam, Patrick Nyarko, as you mentioned, a number of bodies on the side. But you said it, DC United, a team that really has used the draft well, used the draft for players that are full-time players for them, for players that have made a difference for them. See if one of these players is able to be a part of that. You see Zach Thornton and Ben Olsen in that box watching on as Brant Bronico gets into the 18 and wins a corner kick for his side.
So far, a quiet offseason, though, for DC United. And there's a number of teams in that position. And the message, as always, that you send out to fans in that case is give it a little bit of time. Because if you go check out that transaction page at MLSsoccer.com, you'll see a lot of moves start to roll in January and February.
Bronico takes this right-footed corner. Klanowski knocks it away and gets fouled. One of the things we were talking about, though, Weeby, with Seattle, but DC United another one. Teams that finish strong in MLS and then don't have a lot of losses. It's tough to tell fans, be patient. The same thing will work the next year. But those two are those teams. I think New York Red Bulls have been in that conversation the last 2 years of patience and trying to just continue the process over the course of an offseason.
Yeah, look, success also causes some issues on the cap as well because when those bonuses start hitting for players that perform, that applies to the next season. So you have those bonus numbers start to hit on your cap, and all of a sudden what you thought you had as far as your numbers going into the next year are a little bit different, and that can hamstring you sometimes in the market. That can hamstring you in signing new players or extending other players. Those are always issues. But you talk about DC, I think Benny Ball, and I know he doesn't like that term, but a measured approach to signings, to roster building is where they've gone. They've often gone to MLS experienced veterans as well. That's where you continue to look for them to be active, and the trade market could be one of those places where they improve.
Wilson wins that initial header. We knock it. It gets knocked away, and Klanowski's the one to pick it up. Klanowski throws it out. Final minutes of the first half here. The second game of this second day. Team control, Team Tango. MLSsoccer.com bringing you all the Combine games. Matt Doyle, of course, will be throwing mock drafts at you left and right.
Only one more.
Ben Bear, plenty of info. And we were talking about the Seattle Sounders. What do they have to do this year? What can they do to maybe be a two-time champion?
Well, there's Garth Lagerwey, and he said here recently that one thing, not necessarily holding them back, but keeping them from signing another DP is obviously the health of Clint Dempsey, and we saw him go out without a regular heartbeat in late August, but he missed the final 16 games. He missed the playoffs. But there is some hope that he'll be back for 2017, and Bruce Arenas said as much about U.S. national team camp, but same thing for the Sounders. They hope he'll be back perhaps for their own training camp, but that's going to make them be a little bit cautious, I think, of the market when it comes to big money moves, because that will certainly affect what they can fit in the cap and what kind of roles are available on that team.
Holland to the feet of Branico. He pushes it wide right. Of course, Ziggy Schmidt will be coming up in the second half to join us. He'll tell us what he's seen from the first half. We'll pick his brain about anything he's ever thought in the world. Myself and Andrew Wiebe, Matt Doyle will be leaving us. We'll be back on Thursday. The final chance for these players to prove themselves. That one coming 10 a.m. Eastern time, followed by a second game, so a much earlier set. Get on MLSsoccer.com. 10 a.m. Western time. Pacific time, of course. We won't be out here at 7 a.m.
1 p.m. Pacific time.
We won't be out here at 7 a.m.
Oh, man. I've been in all 4 time zones
as
in
this
the last
ball
week,
rolls
so
out, and we have a
I
completion of our first half here, 1-1 game.
First
Team
half
Control
score.
against Team Tango. Zico Lewis, for the second game in a row, scores a
Tango
penalty
1.
kick to give Team Control a 1-0 lead. Team Tango following it up. Nico Hansen, his phenomenal goal to make it 1-1. Doyle, coming up in this second half, we expect to see Abu Danladi. David Goldsmith scored 2 goals in the last game. Brian Nana-Simcom, Jonathan Lewis, a number of players. Who are you focused on for Team Tango or Team Control off the bench?
I want to see where Danladi plays. I think he'll probably be a winger at the MLS level, but we saw him mostly as a number 9 in the first game. That's the big one. Jonathan Lewis, I want to see if he's as electric as he was in the first game, because he could work his way into the top 3.
Imagine those two on both flanks. That could be really
that would be a lot of fun.
Tucker Hume, I think, might advocate for that one.
Yeah, I think so too. The question is, if you put guys like that in both flanks, do you have any possession? And that would be a question that the team would have to answer, because we're going to see more of Jackson Ewell, and we'll see more of Julian Gressel, I'm guessing, in the second half, as well as, of course, Daniel Johnson.
Let's look how we got here. 1-1, Team Control, Team Tango. Let's go to the highlights of this first half between white and red. I said it was Zico Lewis who got it started on the scoring board, but good opportunities both way, Doyle. These are 2 of the most composed teams you said you've seen at the Combine. Both teams coming out that way once again.
Yeah, they knew what they wanted to do, and they had good balance out there, and they seemed like well-constructed teams, which isn't always the case out here.
Hansen pushing forward. Andrew, I think he's one of the players, if not the player, of the first half.
Yeah, you see that aggressive from him, and Klinovsky is going to want to do better there. But Nico Lewis on the ball, he knows where he wants to go, and there's Holland with one off the post as well.
Yeah, Joe Holland, another player who's shown in this first half a number of long-range chances and shots for him. And it was Napo Matsoso in that attacking midfield role who drew the penalty kick for the opening goal that Zico Lewis dispatched for his second goal of the competition. Matsoso getting the start here after coming off the bench in the last game. And then Doyle, maybe the best goal we've seen at this competition, going end-to-end for Team Tango, and Nico Hansen finishing it off.
And this is individual ability, and that's just an excellent turn. Justin Schmidt put in the blender. Where is Eric Klinovsky going?
Yep, that's just what I was about to say.
Yeah, why is he doing the same exact thing that Justin Schmidt is doing? Klinovsky had a bad first half, not what you want to see from the top-rated keeper in this draft.
We'll be back in just a few minutes with second-half action. Abu Danladi, we expect to see Julian Gressel, a signed senior, as well as more of Jackson Ewell. Ziggy Schmidt will join us here for that broadcast in just a few moments on MLSsoccer.com.
What's the Timbers
Back
stuff?
now for the second half for MLSsoccer.com. Our broadcast of the 2017 MLS Player Combine. Team control in white, going right to left against Team Tango in red. David Goss and Andrew Wiebe, as we have coming to you from the StubHub Center all week. We're joined here in the second half by a number of special guests. That's Ziggy Schmidt that you can hear behind the mic. And for the first time this week, Sam Staisch, Mr. Staischkel, the Adam Schefter of Nabisco Products and of Major League Soccer.
I'll take the Nabisco Products. It's a bit of an overstatement on Major League Soccer.
The Adam Schefter of ramen?
Yeah. We'll go with any food you want.
Breaking down all ramen news, and we wanted to bring Sam in because you've been roving around. You've been talking to a lot of GMs, a lot of coaches, a lot of agents about what's been going on, what's the big things. Let's start with players on the field, the combine players. What have you heard about players moving, or who have you seen that's impressed?
I haven't, unfortunately, had a chance to watch much of today's action. Just been doing a lot of writing and talking, so not a ton of insight from today. Have heard that there's a decent amount of offers flying around at the top of the draft. Houston GM Matt Jordan told me that they've received several offers for the 4th overall pick. Darren Eales told me the same thing a couple of days ago for the 2nd overall. I expect that Chicago at number 3 is probably hearing the same thing. Minnesota at number 1, I haven't heard anything to that regard, but I mean, just the hunch that I have, it seems like Jeremy Ebobisse is going to be the number 1 pick, and I'd be a little bit surprised if they moved out of that.
Now, decision makers, of course, across the board are pretty well known to most of the fans out there, but the one club we're wondering a little bit about right now are the Colorado Rapids. Paul Bravo moving on from them. What are you hearing about what's going down in their front office? Yeah,
so Paul Bravo and the club parted ways, I guess, last Friday. Kind of made an announcement Friday night. And right now, they don't have any replacement in place or anything like that, given that it was a recent move. They have a man named Porig Smith, I believe is the correct pronunciation. He's been with them for a couple of years, kind of working underneath Bravo. So he'll be working with Pablo Mastroeni, their head coach, Claudio Bravo, who's also in their technical department, the assistant coaches, and team president Tim Hinchy kind of running point on the draft, and we'll see if they hire a replacement for Bravo or not. In other Rapids news, John Spencer, assistant coach, has left Colorado. The word is that he's going to join San Jose, and Connor Casey is set to replace him on Mastroeni's staff. He's been here all week, walking around in Rapids gear. Announcement should be coming in the next day or two, I'm told.
Connor Casey, very, very interesting, moving into a different role. Con man, a guy that we've seen score a lot of goals in this league and stick around here for the last couple of things. What else are you hearing? Who else is talking out there, and what should we expect in the lead up to the draft?
So the big news that I'm reporting today is it's been kind of flying around all day, but Sebastian Blanco, who's a 28-year-old Argentine, plays for San Lorenzo. The Timbers have made an offer for him. I'm told by multiple people that the total sum for the transfer fee and first-year salary would be $4.5 million. And it's not done yet. It's not finalized, but the offer has been made. Club America have also made an offer for him, so some competition for the signature there.
America, of course, we've heard that they're making some moves. Darwin Quintero, a San Jose target, according to Jeff Carlisle of ESPN FC. Lots of moves going down. Siggy, what do you know about Sebastian Blanco? Is he a guy that you've looked at in your time in Major League Soccer?
Yeah, we looked at Blanco. I think he's a quality player. He's a player who plays wide, likes to be an inverted winger on the left side coming into the right, but he can also play underneath the forwards in the role that Valeri plays as well. He's a player we were interested in the first transfer window, but it didn't work out. His price has gone up a little bit from the news there, but and I think for sure he'd rather come to the U.S. than Mexico. So I think there's a good shot that Portland can get him.
Sam, before you leave us, your great Northwestern journalism investigation, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Talked to a few guys kind of interestingly about the World Cup expansion news this morning. Few former U.S. internationals. Claudio Reyna was very against it. Carlos Bocanegra, who's now with Atlanta, of course, he was kind of open to it, actually, which surprised me. Pretty much everyone I've seen so far has been against the move to 48 teams. And then I talked to a Canadian as well, Mauro Biello, about the news. And he sort of had some concerns about moving from 32 to 48, but was excited at the opportunity to provide for a country like Canada, who, of course, haven't qualified for the World Cup since 1986, giving them kind of a better chance at getting back into the big dance.
You've been to a couple combines, Sam. We've talked to Doyle about it. Of course, Ziggy's been to his fair share. What have you seen from this experience from past years, the way players, coaches, the experience, any of that has changed?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys have probably talked about this a little bit, but it just moving to L.A. from Fort Lauderdale, where it's played in a cricket stadium. The field is far away from the stands. Ziggy can probably speak to the fact that it's sometimes hard for coaches and GMs and scouts and all those guys to actually get a good seat to see the game in a decent way. So it's just a lot more. It feels a lot more professional out here to me. That's kind of the big takeaway. The field is a lot better, which is nice for the players certainly. So that's sort of the big takeaway. Unfortunately, like I said, I haven't been able to watch a ton today. So in terms of on-field takeaways, not a ton. But just the event itself seems more professional this season, which is good for these guys as they're trying to make a mark and impress some teams ahead of the draft on Friday.
Well, Sam Stejskal, we appreciate you taking the time to come join us. You can follow him at Sam Stejskal on Twitter.
Good luck spelling that.
SamStejskal, as all Stejskals are spelled,
Yeah,
of course.
knows. Yeah.
He'll be on ETR on Thursday giving us a little SuperDraft preview, and he'll continue to tweet out and write at MLSsoccer.com. Sam, as always, you are the best.
Guys, it's been fun. I'm glad that I joined. My last TV appearance, I had a terrible mustache, so this one went a lot better.
Boy, you still have that terrible
I'm not
mustache. A lot discussed there with Sam, a lot of changes. Ziggy mentioning Blanco and the difference he can make in this league, but a lot of movement going on right now and a lot of teams trying to position themselves in a better place going forward. For these two teams, some changes coming into the second half. Guillermo Delgado for the team in control in white, returning up top in place of Fernandez. Daniel Johnson coming in at the left wing. Julian Gressel comes into this game at right midfield. And Christian Tieryoung will go into, it looks like, central midfield alongside Jackson Ewell and Andrew Wheeler-Aminu. That was Jacob Nerwinski at right back for the team in white, team control. And the rest of that back line remains the same. Adui Achim switching to the left side, and Schmidt and Wilson remaining in at center back. Eric Klanovsky, a shaky first half, and he remains in goal. See, he was one of the top-rated keepers. We talked a little bit in the first game about what a keeper can do, what they can't do because of situations. A shaky first half from him. On the flip side, Cleveland, a few saves to make as well. What are you hearing? What are you seeing from those two?
I mean, definitely, like you said, a shaky first half. The one thing you're looking for as a coach when you're looking at a goalkeeper is you want him to make the saves he should make. You definitely don't want him to have a ball slip through his hands the way that happened. You don't want them to give up a goal possibly that shouldn't come close to being a goal. So you're looking for that consistency. And so now, coaches are maybe saying, well, let's lend a closer eye here. But again, the goalkeepers, I think you got to do your homework. You got to talk to their colleges. You got to have seen them play in college, and then you can make a decision.
In the first half, Miles Robinson, one of the Generation Adidas players, playing in at center back. He's out with Walker Hume, you see there on the ball, and Brian Nanasinkum coming back in at central midfield. Reagan Dunk remains at right back. He gets that ball off the foot of Sam Hamilton, who remains in midfield alongside Holland. Abu Dunladi here on the ball, comes in at that number 9 position, and Jonathan Lewis entering the game at left midfield. Ziggy, did you see anything from Miles Robinson that's changed your opinion in any way of him?
I thought he was solid. There wasn't anything where you'd say, well, he's not as good as maybe he is, but there was also nothing there where you'd say, okay, this is a definite guy I gotta get my hands on. I would like to see him play more minutes than just 45. Obviously, Team Tango has maybe too many defenders. They're not able to do that. So I'd like to see him play a little bit more time. I'd like to see him get tested a little bit more. But he's been constant, effective, without really drawing a lot of attention to him.
Abu Dunladi, Siggy. We talked about him in the first half. We wondered whether he'd be a number 9 in MLS. Kind of the consensus was probably more on the wing. Where do you see his future in the league?
I think he can do both, but the blessing that he has is that I think he can play on the wing. And And oftentimes, when you look at teams, where are they going to spend money on DPs and TAM players? It's going to be at that center forward position. It's going to be at the attacking midfield. It's going to be a winger here and there. So having the flexibility and the ability to play both positions gives him a better chance of getting on the field. And if he gets on the field, he'll be able to show that he can play.
Holland back on the ball after a bright first half for the Englishmen, charging forward. He's able to get by Wheeler Aminu, pushes it wide left. One-on-one now, David Goldsmith, and his cross is blocked by Rajan.
Holland is impressive. He has been very, very good all day. I think he's been the best central midfielder on the day for any of the teams that we've seen so far.
I was talking to a coach during the first half who they had Holland in training with their team, and he said the same thing, that he was just very good, very consistent.
Cross comes in on the corner kick, headed away by Ewell. Holland gets a chance to put his foot on the ball. Sprays it wide to Dunloddy. Dunloddy curls a cross in, a header at the back end, and it goes over the top and out there. Matej Jakovic in at left back for Team Tango gets his head to it.
See, the example of that cross is something that, as a coach watching a game, it's what you're looking for. The ball was hit with the proper amount of bend on it. It was put into the right space. The timing was off a little bit, but not every player is able to do that. In the first half, the right back, Odo Atsum, had chances, but his quality of crosses weren't there. So that's the one chance he's had, and he's got that technical ability to make those kind of good plays.
There's Joe Holland again. Just that little that knack for taking the right touch to take him around a defender, and then he's got the aggression and the separation speed to push up and get his head up. That's what coaches are like, too.
Siggy, one of the players who we talked about a lot in the first half, Nico Hansen, number 63. Of course, he scored the goal, but another bright game for him. What have you seen from him in his college time and here, and where do you see him maybe projecting in the draft and at the next level?
I think Nico, very early in his college career, his freshman and sophomore year, was really a guy that you were saying, hey, this guy could be, a really good player down the line. His senior year didn't go quite as well as he would have wanted it to go, but, he's had bits and pieces and moments, but he scored a great goal in the first half. He's a player that I still think has good potential. He's quick, he's got good control, he can play on the flanks, he's got a good work rate. He's a guy I would definitely be looking at.
You see him as a winger in the league or as a second forward?
See him as a winger. I mean, to me, he's similar a little bit to Ethan Finlay, Brian Mullen type of guy. I don't know if there's enough quality for him to be a second forward. If his goal scoring is good enough, he's a winger who scores a good amount of goals. I don't know if he's a second forward who scores enough goals. But and his work rate is so good. If you can use him on the flank, I think you can take advantage of that.
Dunloddy dropping deep to help his team pick up the ball and try and move up the field. Coming up from left back.
And just
now.
A little play like that, again, from Holland. He checked his shoulder before he even received the pass, and he knew he had that whole flank open, and he put a beautiful ball into space right there. I think if there was a real left back, not a converted central defender, that's a breakaway up the flank. That's not quite a jailbreak, but suddenly you're moving into the attacking third at pace. And that's the type of thing that coaches notice, because so much of the game now is about overloading one side and then swinging it to the other where you have an acre of space in front of you.
It looks like maybe an injury. Dekovic on that far side, putting his hand on his knees and maybe signaling to his team's bench, although now he'll take the throw in. Team Tango scoring through Nico Hansen. A number of players out on the field that a lot of people are interested in. Jonathan Lewis, a Generation Adidas player, here on the ball. He gets by the first offender. He charges up the field outside of the foot cross, just a little bit too far for Goldsmith. Goldsmith now keeps it alive for his team. Lays it into the path of Hamilton. That shot blocked by Ewell. A second chance at it for Goldsmith and no one there on the far post. And now Wheeler Aminu to play it out, but Jonathan Lewis, 2 goals last game, showing his electricity, Siggy, once again in this one.
No, and it was good to see. I mean, Lewis hits this cross with the outside of his right foot, and there's probably some people that say, he should have hit that left-footed. I really don't care if he hits it left-footed or with the outside of his right. The key for me is, can a player deal with the ball when it's on the left-hand side of his body? He was able to do it. It was an excellent cross, and I like him. He's a player I liked the first time I saw him play in college.
A little bit of a Jordan Morris-esque cross right there with the outside of the right
everybody
foot.
wants to say Jordan needs to develop his left foot. If he can bend it in with the outside of his right foot, he doesn't need a left foot.
The ball pushes from left to right here. Nerwinski trying to play across all the way to Delgado. It's headed away by Nanasinkum. And finally cleared by Dunkton. Dunladi now chasing in behind Klinovsky. Aduiachem moved from right back to left back. He was one of the better players in the first day at right back. Not as maybe big a half, but a strong half, I guess you could say, in that first half. Now forced to play on the left side. What have you seen from him? What do you expect from him?
We haven't seen much. He looks like a right-footed guy, a right back trying to play left back and struggling with it. And, there's a knock-on effect. Daniel Johnson has been anonymous this half, and I think part of that is just not getting any support. And look, it's the same sort of thing that we talked about with Colton Storm. It would be better for these guys if they were a little more positionally flexible, and that's something that teams will have to factor in when they make a choice.
Holland coming up the field, gets it to Dekovic, and his cross blocked, and it'll go out. Joe Holland once again taking up space, finding a teammate.
I mean, Joe Holland has shown very well. He's a very good player. The key elements, again, as you're a coach and you're drafting, you're saying he's a foreign player. He's already 23 years of age. He's going to be 24 next year. Is that what is giving him the edge right now? Do I want to waste a foreign spot on him? But as a player, he's been as good as anybody here at the Combine.
Lewis to the feet of Goldsmith. Goldsmith curls it to the far post. No one there in red, and team control forced to put it out. And it'll be Holland to take once again, although we'll have a substitution in the meantime. Tucker Hume, 6'5" forward, will return, as will the youth international, Martin Galvao. And those two coming on for Team Tango. It looks like Brant Bronico will get a little bit of a rest, as may Joe Holland.
And he doesn't want to come out. Can't blame him.
Doesn't actually have to come off. He's already off the field, but the two players that remained in for the second half coming off here. And now it'll be Sam Hamilton on the ball. The Team Tango bringing in two players who played in the first half for an opportunity to play a bit more here in the second half. Day 2 of the 2017 MLS Player Combine here in Southern California. The rain has stopped at StubHub. We've got one more day of coverage for you Thursday. We'll stream, of course, both of those games. As our team here, Andrew Wiebe, Ziggy Schmidt, Matt Doyle, myself, Sam Stachel, of course, our fearless leader, Abner Aceves, who runs everything we do. We will return, and then we'll move downtown for the 2017 MLS SuperDraft, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming on MLSsoccer.com on Friday, January 13th. Friday the 13th, not the luckiest day to get drafted, and I don't think a single one of these kids will care. They'll find out where they go. It'll all go down on draft day. Tiggy, take us into draft day a little bit. Coaching staff, you've got your picks. You're talking to teams, of course, all week. What's it like when you get onto the floor, when you get to your table?
Well, you got to make sure you got your jacket and tie on. So you want to make sure of that, although there's some teams that'll go without the tie, and there's some guys who have the designer suits. But really, you want to come into that draft day. You've got your lists. You're prepared. You know who you're going to pick, and if you're not one of the top teams or talking to the top teams, trading up is always a thing that's a constant in every draft. The teams that pick in the top 4 or 5, they're always talking to teams about making trades, and so you sort of wait to see what happens. And as drafts unfold, there's always a shocking pick here or there, something that you don't expect, and then you've got to react to that.
Delgado trying to put Nanasinkum behind him. Nanasinkum able to make the tackle and clean it away. Daniel Johnson picks up the second ball. The University of Louisville Cardinal had 2 assists and a drawn PK in the last game. He draws that foul there off of Galvao.
And you could see Nanasinkum defending in space. That's the second or third time that he's had to do that this half already. I thought he was very good in game 1 as well. He's a guy who might have helped his stock a little bit, but
Gressel here on the quickly taken free kick, and that one gets blocked away.
But I think there are concerns about him in terms of his size. Is he going to be good enough in the air to deal with the likes of Fernando Adi, to deal with the likes of Kai Kamara or Josie Altidore or Patrick Mullins, center forwards who will come into the game and just dominate you physically like that?
Adui Achem out here at left back. Works it into the feet of Delgado. Delgado showed well for himself in the first game, creating opportunities, walking that offside line, and getting himself a goal. Was the active all-time leader in goals scored in college soccer before he finished this year at the University of Delaware, the Fighting Blue Hens. Of course, one of the strongest programs in the CAA. And now Delgado trying to take his game to that next level. But once again, as you mentioned, Ziggy, an international player, so a player that teams really are going to have to think about whether or not they're going to take him in this draft.
No, definitely. I mean, that's something as a coaching staff you're always looking at and you're concerned with because, you know, you're allowed 8 foreign players. Sometimes you're able to trade for an added international spot. And with, you know, TAM allocation money out there, that eats up a lot of foreign spots. Although green cards are easier to come by, you still got to monitor that, and you got to see if that's going to be open or not open.
Galvao now with some pressure on him, and a foul called against team control in that midfield. Jackson Ewell, a big player the first day, one of the players Minnesota is rumored after. Their team got a little bit deeper today, as we mentioned in that first half, with the addition of the Russian, Latvian, Danish, Norwegian player in Demidov, who could come in, and we talked about maybe center back, central midfield. Ziggy, you've been part of expansions before. What have you seen from these 2 expansion teams? Minnesota first, let's talk about how they're preparing and how they're getting ready for this first season.
Well, obviously Minnesota made a decision on a coach very late, so that probably delays the process a little bit. They're trying to catch up right now. They're relying a little bit more on guys who were part of their NASL team, and so we'll see how that builds into it. It's good to see them make a move now as they get into DPs and acquire those sort of players as well. But, you know, Adrian Heath's going to play a big role as they move forward here. Unfortunately, their timing is a little bit later, and so that's going to maybe make it a little more difficult because when you're finding players internationally, it's not necessarily a 2-week process. Sometimes it's a 6-month process.
Johnson trying to find some space. It's knocked away, cleared by Dekovic. All the way back, Adui Achem starting the game at right back. Out of Maryland now. Over on the left side. Showing a little bit of versatility potentially as well. And then, of course, Ziggy, we talk about Minnesota. You got to talk about the other side as well. Atlanta United, they've absolutely been active from day one. Carlos Bocanegra making moves both in the coaching side with Tata Martino as well as some big-name players, more similar to what we saw in Seattle. How do you see their development? How do you see them coming into this first season?
Well, they've obviously made a lot of moves, and with their DPs, I think they've made a couple of really good decisions. I think Miguel Almiron is going to be a really exciting player for this league and has good quality and good physical characteristics as well to play in our league. They've added a lot of other players as well. They've rumors of a lot of TAM guys that they're going to bring in. The middle of their midfield, they still need to shore up a little bit and get a little deeper. And I'm sure there'll be some moves coming in that area and in that department. But they're definitely ahead of the curve in comparison to Minnesota. And, now we'll see how they hit in the draft and how it all comes together at the end of the day. Because you need the key with an expansion team, not to go on too long, the key with an expansion team is getting off to a good start. If you get off to a good start, the team gains some confidence and you start to believe in yourself. If you don't get off to a good start, then you start to doubt yourself and it becomes a long season.
One last question on expansion and then we'll get off of it, though. Yamil Assad announced today as an addition for Atlanta. Is he a player that you've ever come across before?
No, I'm trying to. Where's he from?
22-year-old Villa Starfield, probably the number 10 for them.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I have seen him on tape. Haven't seen him play live, but obviously with Martino, he's got such a good feel of the Argentinian players. I mean, he's the guy who's probably very happy with him.
And that's when you look at Atlanta and kind of the speed and the rate and just the volume of signings they've had so far. They've been settled in that front office for a while, and they've got guys in a number of different positions, all of which were playing off each other's strengths. Paul McDonough, of course, went through the expansion process with Orlando City. He's there behind the scenes making moves. You got Carlos Bocanegra, who can tap into his national team connections and otherwise. And, of course, Darren Eales is no stranger to big deals. And then Tata Martino, of course, has so much respect in Argentina that when you include his name in a negotiation, when he makes a call, that means an awful lot, and that's where you can start to convince these young Argentine players that perhaps Atlanta is a good place for them to continue their careers.
Ziggy, Carlos Bocanegra running the show in Atlanta. We're here at Combine. A number of guys sitting in the suites around us, coaching, GMs, assistant coaches, have been in this Combine. What do you see in this second generation of MLS lifers, of guys who came up with the league, who played in the league, and now are making decisions in this league?
Well, obviously they're a lot more vested in the league than the first generation and first go around. They have a better understanding of what it takes to be successful, and a lot of times it's easier for them to sell the league. Because when they're talking to players and giving explanations, and a lot of times when you're going after foreign players now, it's almost like recruiting a player to college. You've got a video you're showing them, you're telling them to get on the website to take a look at your highlight reels, your goals, and all of that. And these guys have been through it, so they know what the league's all about, what the atmosphere is all about. They know what is important to the players, and that becomes an important selling point.
What do they ask? What are the questions foreign players want to know? What do they come to you with?
Well, the first thing they want to know is that do the checks come on a regular basis, because a lot of those guys have been playing in situations and in countries where all of a sudden there's a bad run and the paycheck doesn't show up that week. So that was a good opportunity.
Julian Gressel across the face of goal off the foot of Nerwinski.
Go Huskies.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things for sure. In terms of that, they also ask you about the lifestyle. They also ask you about the crowd support. They ask you about the living situation. You can give them a good feel of the comfortability of the stadiums in comparison to what they're going through.
Ziggy, let's be real now. Did you have to lie to them about what crowd support was like 15 years ago, and were you able to tell the truth over the last 5 years?
My approach has always been to be very honest. So I was honest in those days when I was in Columbus. I remember talking to Guillermo Schelotto and telling him this wasn't going to be Boca-sized crowds.
Right. Sometimes he will play in front of 4,000 people at Community America Ballpark.
Exactly. But he was looking, like in the case of Schelotto, he was looking for a safe environment for his family. A lot of the players that come from South America are looking for that as well. And just a comfort. And oftentimes, what we don't understand is the green card is important to quite a few guys. Again, using Schelotto, he's very constant about making sure he comes up here every 6 months with his family, keeping his green card intact. Jimmy Traore, who played for me in Seattle, is now coaching in Seattle. He's made the U.S. his home. So that capability definitely plays a bigger role than you think.
So what you're telling us is the future of the U.S. national team is Guillermo Schelotto's children?
I don't,
Javier Morales.
I don't know if they're citizens. Hopefully they'll become citizens. You never know.
That's the key for the future.
You don't want it to be like Rinus Michels said, Rinus Michels many, many, many moons ago said, how long does it take to develop American players? And he said 5 years. That's how long it takes for citizenship. I think we're beyond that a little bit.
We hope so. U.S. national team camp will take place. It starts practice tomorrow across the street at the StubHub Center here in Carson, California. And we, of course, will be coming back with one more day of coverage before the SuperDraft on Friday, as now Team Control gets the shot away off the crossbar, and it rolls in Zico Lewis just off the bench for the second time this game, and he finishes off the chance created by Tier Young.
Well, it started with a long ball out of the back from Daniel Johnson, who got on the ball and was a little bit brave and maybe a little too adventuresome. And there you see Tier Young and Nanasinkem, Cal versus Stanford, and I think Cal got the better of that one. And a nice, Johnny on the spot from Zico Lewis.
You mentioned Daniel Johnson not getting the touches out wide he's gotten in the first game, and still he finds a way to make a difference, though, in this
Excellent player. I think he's played his way into the top 10. I really do.
Goal scored
Daniel
by
Johnson, number 23 in Team Control,
Guillermo
in white,
Delgado
gets,
in the 75th minute.
if you're going to give it to him, a second assist, which
Goal
I
was
would,
unassisted.
to create his third goal of the competition, or of the Combine.
I think our friend Elliot just said it was unassisted, so maybe we can log a complaint with Opta.
And that will be logged presently.
I think the touch across was by Sincom, so maybe it is unassisted.
So unassisted off of Nanasinkum's head as of now, as Team Control takes a 2-1 lead. Nanasinkum coming forward for this throw-in. Brian Nanasinkum, of course, one of Stanford's stalwarts as they've gone to back-to-back titles. One of the calmest and most experienced players in all of college soccer, as Don Lottie goes from right to left, gets it to the feet of Lewis. Jonathan Lewis, a late addition to the Generation Adidas class at a University of Akron, just a freshman from Florida. He went over and trialed in Europe over the past few weeks as he worked on his negotiations, finally completing them and committing his future to Major League Soccer. A friend of Darlington Nagbe's, of course, the production out of University of Akron over the last 7 or 8 years has been one of the big parts of Major League Soccer. Ziggy Schmidt not happy with that pass selection there.
No, I mean, there's an example, of what I always say. We talk about analytics and everything, so that's going to go down as a completed pass. Possession statistically looks great, but he picked the wrong pass.
Correction.
And they had the opportunity to play the other player in. And sometimes we get hung up with numbers and say, hey, he completed 75 or 80% of his passes, but you got to make good passes, good choices. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to owe on that.
No, it's
75,
good commentary.
75 minutes in to this one. Team Control leading Team Tango 2-1. Our final game of the day. David Goss, Andrew Wiebe, Ziggy Schmidt, Matt Doyle. We will step out on the field in a 4v4 matchup. Just after this, we'll take on every coaching staff. Which coaching staff in the league would win? A 4v4, 5v5 tournament.
Oh, I'm picking the staff with Patrick Vieira. Sorry, guys, but I think that one's pretty clear cut.
Yeah, but they got a couple of old assistants, so I don't know.
There you go.
You got to go for those young guys when you get a little bit older.
Ben Olsen, Zach Thornton, a nice young team. Peter Vermees, we know, would put a guy or two on the training table as well if he had the opportunity. Sporting KC, of course. One of the teams that has used the draft quite effectively. A number of teams here trying to make a difference. The Chicago Fire is sitting at number 3 in this draft. They got Jonathan Campbell and Brandon Vincent last year. Matt Polster the year before. All difference makers. Houston Dynamo at number 4. Do we think, Doyle, that those two teams are going to hold? Do we think they make picks? We think they maybe trade?
I think Houston ends up holding. I think that Chicago is very much in play for a trade. They don't need more prospects. They need difference makers. They need a little bit of flexibility in central midfield.
And that's what you want to see from Abu Danladi. Get in isolation positions and take somebody on. He did a good job there. The left foot didn't do what he wanted it to with the service, but that'll be something that teams look for him to do in the pros with whatever team he gets into. Beat players 1v1.
Dunladi, as we mentioned in the last broadcast, coming in as a Generation Adidas prospect the last few years, finally deciding to come to Major League Soccer this year. I think a player that a lot of people here are excited to watch out on the field. 7 goals last season in just 11 appearances for UCLA. 6 goals the year before. His biggest year of appearances, 19 appearances, 5 goals the year before that. He was part of Soccer America's all-freshman team. Another one of the talented players coming to college soccer out of Ghana. A number of players here out of Ghana. As Johnson puts that ball over the top to no one. We saw Lalas Abubakar as well, another player from Ghana. Dominic Oduro is here. A big part of the MLS pipeline right now, and can understand why they only knocked us out of 2 straight World Cups for us to get there.
Siggy,
You got to look at them if they do that.
we're talking about players, difference makers when you talk about Abu Danladi, but there's no guarantee that any guys will be starters or get the time they need to do that in year one. Are there players in either of these games, on either of these 4 teams, that you look at and say, hey, he has starter potential? He could be a starter for the right team.
Yeah, there's not all that many. I think Dunladi is one of the few that you would say he's a guy who could step in and start. We could play him as a winger and, put 10 other guys on the field, and it could look pretty good. But it's again, it takes time to grow and mature into the position. I remember Steve Zakawani saying to me during his first year at Seattle, he goes, "Why do you keep subbing me out the 60th minute mark?" And I said, "Because you're dead. You're not fit enough to go more than that." And then the next year when he started playing 75, 80, 85 minutes, I go, "See, I'm not subbing you out now because you're fitter." But it takes a while for them to adjust to the grind. But Dunladi's one of the guys who could make that jump and that step.
Delgado switching the field to Zico Lewis. Lewis pushes the ball up the wing to Nerwinski. Nerwinski, a big day one of the highest rated players in the physical testing before day one on Saturday. Pushing forward from that right back position. And now linking up with Jackson Ewell. Going to play in that deeper midfield, a quieter position. Tough for him to make a big difference as we get a foul called here and a yellow card, the first of the game. And it looks like we'll go against Rajan there on that far side. One of the players, Ziggy, we were looking at coming into this into this combine, who we talked to you about, who you've seen before, is Justin Schmidt, getting basically the full 90 here at center back in this one as Dunladi turns and rips the shot. Klonowski's able to control it. What have you seen from Schmidt?
I think he's been solid without being spectacular. I'd really like to see Smith. He's such a good Schmidt. He's such a good passer of the ball.
Yellow card.
I'd like to see him play make a little bit more out of the back because he is one of those guys. He's got, referring back to an old timer, he's got a Greg Vanny type of left foot. I mean, he's very good at servicing the ball in set pieces, but he has that ability to hit that cross-field pass. Like can he find right now the left back, and he's played very conservatively. And I would like to see him play a little more aggressively at some key moments.
Gressel dropping deep, able to shift into central midfield, his more natural position. Robinson wins that header. Miles Robinson, the GA, signing out of Syracuse, coming on a couple moments ago in at center back with his partner Jack Elliott. Elliott going in at holding midfield this time. Nana Sinkum now on the ball. He started at center back, showing a little versatility to move to right back. As Miles Robinson gets caught in possession, eventually back to Cleveland. Dewey Ocham with the touch. One in the midfield here by Hamilton. Hamilton running forward. Chased down by Tier Young. Able to keep the ball now. Going down the left wing is Lewis. Dunladi turns, tries to play it in for the path of Lewis. It rolls out easily.
Yeah, Hamilton missed that pass right there. He should have slipped it wide to Lewis. I think he would have been able to get around the edge right there.
Looks like Joe Holland up, ready to come back on for a couple more minutes under Jamie Franks. As I mentioned, Denver going to the College Cup this year. Back-to-back years undefeated in the regular season. He's put together one of the best programs. Ziggy, a guy who's taken a couple players out of the Pacific Northwest and brought them down to Denver.
No, definitely. Jamie's done a good job, and young coaches. I think the thing that they often forget is it's it's about going out and finding players and recruiting. I mean, you don't have to apologize for finding good players. I think a lot of times, anybody could coach those guys. No, it's not all about that. But yeah, you have to be a good coach, and you got to get them organized, and you got to take care of the little things and the details. But one of the most important things a coach can do is have a good eye and find good players, and Jamie's definitely done that for his program.
Kevin Anderson on the other side, the head coach of Columbia University, located, of course, in Harlem, New York, one of the finest regions of the United States. I have to say so myself.
Some questionable inhabitants named David Goss, though.
Walker Hume on the ball. The Hume brothers were two players that, of course, they're going to get buzzed when you have 6'5" twins show up. UNC, a College Cup finalist as well. Walker Hume, quiet game, I think you'd have to say at the back. Tucker Hume, maybe not the difference maker you'd like to see up top.
No, I mean, definitely not. I mean, this is why, one game is one game. 2 games, now all of a sudden you can see tendencies and so forth, and that's what you see right now. There goes Delgado again.
Delgado working that back line. Looking for a teammate. It goes through everyone to Tier Young. Daniel Johnson making the run outside of him. Gressel looking to turn. Plays it wide for Johnson. Nanasinkum out to defend. He steps in quickly. Johnson tries to go around him. Goes to the ground. Can't keep possession. And now it's Team Tango's ball. I think the referee calling a touch on himself. But it'll be Team Tango's ball in red. Back the other way. The final 5 minutes or so here of day 2 of the 2017 MLS Player Combine here at the StubHub Center in Carson, California. Home to our very friendly hosts, the LA Galaxy. A team that's looking to turn it around this year as well after, I don't say a down year, but maybe a down year for the pedigree that they've built. Of course, Bruce Arena moving back to the head coach of the U.S. national team. His team will start training across the street tomorrow. 32 players trying to make a difference. Although, unfortunately, we heard that Bill Hamid has an injury, so he won't be part of this camp. I think a player a lot of people were excited to see back in the national team program, one of the brightest young keepers in Major League Soccer. Joe Holland back on the field immediately on this set piece. He curls it in.
Ball.
Headed in the wrong direction. That searching ball from him, finding a teammate. Now,
more work rate from Ewell right there. His ability to play both sides of the ball has led to a couple of chances for team control in the second half. He's just a responsible player who has a little bit of flair, a little bit of ability to do something special as well. And that makes him easy to put into a central midfield, especially if you have veterans around him.
Yeah, for my money, he's definitely a top 5 pick. He's got to go somewhere because he's tactically ready to play, and he's immersed in the game, and which is always good to see.
A turnover here in a dangerous spot for Dewey Ochum. Tucker Hume on the ball. He's got Dunladi to the side. He takes the shot himself, and Klinowski makes the save.
In the first half, I criticized him a little bit for not shooting. That one, I'm going to criticize him for not passing because I think the right ball could have put Dunladi in.
Tucker Hume had Dunladi off to his left. Dunladi playing out of that number 9 role. Maybe that's where we kind of wanted to see him because a lot of people projecting him out that spot in the next level. And Holland trying to put him in, but he's looked comfortable out there.
Yeah, and you see him there playing a little bit more centrally, riding in the channel. Look, it's his versatility that's going to have teams licking their chops in addition to all that skill because they'll look at him and say, hey, if we have a 3-man front line, he may be able to play all 3 positions. Certainly the wings are a spot for him, but it's skill, it's ability, but it's also a little bit of versatility, and he has a little bit out to his game.
The final few moments here. Team control up 2-1. Zico Lewis with both the goals, one from a penalty kick drawn by Napo Matsoso in the first half. The other one, quality finish from the top of the box over an outstretched goalkeeper and off the post. Team Tango a goal in the first half through Nico Hansen. He went coast to coast and then put the brakes on with a tasty finish for the New Mexico player as Delgado gets into the box. He gets called offside. So the final few moments of day 2, what are the big takeaways for you guys from day 2? Matt, let's start with you.
I think some players have started separating themselves a little bit. When I look at central midfielders, I see Ewell and then Gressel and Holland. I think those are the guys who stand out the most to me. I think this draft is deep with wingers. Both Lewis's, Daniel Johnson as well, Dunlady if you see him as a winger, so that there are some difference makers there. And then right backs. Nerwinski hasn't had as dynamic a game, but I think he's been good again. I thought Colton Storm was excellent at right back.
Good work there from Cleveland to take that ball away. Daniel
Chip
Johnson trying to do what Doyle wanted, and he's able to at least earn a corner kick for his side. Ziggy, outside of realizing how much fun it is to spend time with us up here in the booth, what have you seen from day two?
It's definitely been fun, and it's, not disagreeing with Matt. I think, the players he's indicated are definitely there. I think when you have day two, people sort of drop to their level. The cream rises to the top sometimes in day one, and you never know what you're going to get. But in day two, everybody starts to find their level, and you saw that happen with a few players. And now you're going to see what happens as you go into the third game. We've got ourselves a championship game, which is nice to see because Team Control has won both games, as has Team Copa. So we'll, that maybe adds a little bit of something because I know the players always compete, even if you're saying it's a selection.
Dunlady to Lewis, and the Generation Adidas might have sealed a point for Team Tango and ruined Ziggy Smith's narrative there. The commentators curse for him.
Dang it.
But Abu Dunlady, Andrew, out wide to Jonathan Lewis, who now has 3 goals in 2 games.
And we kind of saw a little swap of roles there with Lewis in the middle and Dunlady wide. But that's what Dunlady can do. He can get you matched up 1v1, and then the ball. That's what you're looking at. It's not just that he got his head up and saw the box. He had a feeling for where that gap was going to be. He found it. Jonathan Lewis with a nice finish.
But you still you can't underestimate, though, Lewis and his age, because what is Lewis right now, 19?
Yes.
Okay.
Team Control
his
2,
upside,
Team
I
Tango
still
2.
think is very, very big, and I think what he's done in these
And
2
thus
games
concludes match
pushes
day 2
him,
of the
in
Adidas
my mind,
MLS
it pushes him fairly
2017
high.
Player
I don't know if
Combine.
others feel the same way.
Have a good evening and stay dry.
Well, what a surprise. An Akron winger making a difference here. Jonathan Lewis, his 3rd goal of the competition. First goal of the day to tie it 2-2. Team Tango and Team Control. Zico Lewis with 2 goals for his side. Nico Hansen with the first half goal for Team Tango in red. And Jonathan Lewis with the second half goal. And let's look at the highlights and let's look at this one. There was a lot of expectations, a lot of players that we wanted to see some big things from in this game. I think Andrew, Nico Hansen was one of the biggest teams in the one of the biggest players in the first half, as of course was Zico Lewis.
Yeah, Zico Lewis here. You see him cut inside. He wants to be on that left foot. He gets a good shot off despite the little tug there. Easy save, but he had a good day. Another PK goal from him. He'll be happy with what he's done.
For Team Tango, they were able to put some pressure on Nico Hansen with the shots, and Eric Klinovsky struggling a little bit in the first half. Doyle, I think a better second half, though, for him.
He still wasn't good in the second half. I thought he was maybe the guy who hurt himself the most on the day. Twice we saw a ball slip through his fingers, and, of course, on the Hansen goal, which we'll see in a minute, he didn't cover himself with glory.
Matsoso getting taken down. The penalty kick earned. Zico Lewis dispatches it. Team Control was dominant in their first game, a little more composed, slower in this second game, but this, Ziggy, maybe the best goal we've seen so far, going end-to-end for Team Tango, and Nico Hansen putting on the brakes with the finish.
No, Nico shows some good acceleration here, and a good decision, good cutback, and a great ball by putting it into the far post. But he showed speed, he showed composure, and he showed good decisions.
Jackson Ewell, the Generation Adidas player, one of the players we were going to highlight. We highlighted coming into this one. Not doing him any bad things there, as he stayed, I think, in the top 5, as Ziggy said. Abu Dunlady, though, Andrew, was bright in this game once again. More on the wing than down the middle, but one of the best performers.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about that. A little chance here, and just wide from Gressel. He also stood out in that central midfield out of Providence. A good player, just barely missing with that chance, but good instincts on the run.
And Gressel coming off that wing, and Daniel Johnson. Doyle, you raved about him after the first day. He plays this ball over the top to lead to the second goal for Team Control.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown the ability to affect the game no matter where he plays. I thought I did see some blemishes today. His decision-making wasn't quite as good, but when you can have not quite as good a day and still end up with an assist and being a difference maker on both sides of the ball, it's pretty nice.
And then Abu Dunlady got it done here, the goal. And as you mentioned, Ziggy, Jonathan Lewis, maybe the highest upside of any player out there over these 2 days. days.
No, his upside's huge. He finished that well, and he was very composed. Abu Danladi, though, shows his ability to play more than one position and shows his strength as well, holding off the defender before he hits the cross.
Well, we will be back one more time on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, with the third day of games here at the 2017 MLS Player Combine. And, of course, 3 o'clock Eastern time on Friday is the SuperDraft streaming live on MLSsoccer.com. Matt Doyle, Siggy Schmidt, and Andrew Wiebe, thank you for joining me here today. And, of course, they will be on that stream on Friday. For Abner Sevis, myself, David Goss, and everyone else part of this production, we thank you so much for watching, and stick to MLSsoccer.com for all of your 2017 SuperDraft news and notes.